Jumden the Shen Wan Dasha Mayana Zobia Sanje Ribala Shazon den Wan Devarisha Jiden Jemba Jivon de Kano Juan Lanam Top Menam Jedamba Sanje Jumden den Shaja Tuba Masa and Moshe the Jazush Damba Jumden the Shen Wan Dasha Maya Zobia Sanje Ribala Shazon den Wan Devarisha Jiden Jemba Jivon de Kano Juan Lanam Pada Menam Jedamba Sanje Jumden den Shaja Bana Sasamo Shudo Jazushi, Damba Jumden the Jinsha Dasham Yada Mazubesa, Rivada Shazon Dama Devarisha Jeden Jamaji, Halo Javana Ameba Hada Menam Sanje Jumden, Pejava Shaja Bana Sasamo Shudo Jazushi, Kaze Kanye Zoho Jadamazea, Sajan Dena, Anejiden Dena Churches, Tezekeva Namda Gunga Shodo Susan, Yishi Jazu Seja, Chawan Jeden Sona Lame, Bochon Yajan Chaza, Senjon Demba Chimen Davish, Sendo Davajan Chaza, the region of Seva Suma Jenyame, Chenjen Chaza, Gombotu Jeshana, Tam Jemba Doma was on the Denja Zujan, the Shisha Chaza, Taben Deja Chawa, you giving us on that Chido and the Major. 新觉就拿啥子拿真的这个那样的老把他那个新给他把原来的给了那样啥子，你把这样没些新给我不说说吧，就让给什么样子的，天天上街他把人干嘛着这嘛没就嘛些，是不是？没那么老大见到过，就是像那么得的了，说那么低也都这些，可怕他们渐渐查对的，搞到那是为老者。 To the
teacher, the blessed one, the one accompanied, the full destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sugata and the Lord of the world, supreme guide of beings to retain, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the shattered land. I prostrate in the offerings and go for refuge. To the teacher, the blessed one, the one going beyond, the full destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, know of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the shattered. I prostrate in the offerings and go for refuge. To the teacher, the blessed one, the one going beyond, the full destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the shattered. I prostrate in the offerings and go for refuge. When I'm supreme among humans, you are born of this earth. You paced out 7 strides and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who arise then, I prostrate. With pure bodies formed supremely pure, wisdom motion like golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 words. We are the best, to you I prostrate. With the spring lines, face like spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. You are immaculate, the 3 words of an incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, teacher having all understanding, the field of air with qualities like a vast ocean, to you the one gone to dustness I prostrate. The purity which makes one free from attachment, the virtue which frees one from the lower realms, the one path, sublime pure reality, to that Dharma which pacifies I prostrate. Those who are liberated and most assure the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you, the sublime community intending virtue I prostrate. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions, subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. starry mirage of flame of a lamp, illusion of a drop of dew or bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits may essential beings attain rank of all seeing, subdue the flow of thoughts, and be delivered from motion of suffering, of aging, sickness, and death.
Sanje jono soje jono la chanju ba do da de ja su. Nage je so je be so no je do la be je sanje do. Sanje soje jono la chanju ba do da de ja su. Nage je so je be so no je do la be je sanje do. Sanje jono soje jono la chanju ba do da de ja su. Nage je so je be so no je do la be je sanje do ba sho.
I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Pomea bombone jemea della pome de mea di shisha bombone. Di shisha ba ka shinye ke de sanje bombola tende rajene yo. Rajene na kama ba de jengo na kama yo. Ka je shinje mo de da nye de. Ka je da nye me ba de chida di shisha ba ke de rajene me na shimo yo ba chida. Rajene da ne shimo da ma do di shisha de kang. Ke de pumbo ma de bra di shisha ba ba yo. Tene ta de tenje shi tene de yo. 풍번나 마덴바라 디신셔바 가야 가제마데 예바 텐데셔다 니 냐와나 바마예마 냐와 nem바지 menjiro 냐와 nem바 디신셔바지 나마면데 제제나 가제 티니신년데 메베 디신셔바데 냐와 네베셔다다 가제 냐와나 모데 테나라신데 다음으로 가면 디신모도 여러게 대단냐나냐나 뭐나 먹은요 또 뭐냐 또 메디신셔 뭐마셔다 또 뭐시죠 메시죠 뭐시죠 메시죠 니네 님의 메자나 다베도 저버자 다도 메다마 시원다 막 다도 터면 아주 시원다 강게 디제제 이제 뭐도 벗은 거 되는 얘기는 대본은 메자나도 라시제 또 산제 얘기는 되는 여도 저거 메도제 상 삼마테 많이 메자 산제 전리제 세번 주변에 뭐 되고 이제 디신시고 토면으로 디신시고 라시가 되는 로데 라시 디신시고 라시면 로한디 라시 디신시고 또 셰시고 나라도 치고 중요하고 관계에 대한 제한도 좀 가방에 맞게 체감을 못하면 오늘 완전 매바다 되면 되지 매주반 이제 제도 먼저 선녀만 이제 더 받는 찬스. So page number 209. So now we are on the, specifically we are refuting the, so refuting the born from others. So I think this is kind of, Nagarjuna, things do not born from itself and other and both and no cause. So this is the Nagarjuna's kind of, and the root text. So in that first commentary, the Buddha Palita, and I think Buddha Palita commentary on this Nagarjuna's the stanza, chapter 1, stanzas number I think 2 or something, right? So Buddha Palita commentaries has criticized by the Baba Vivek and the way he kind of lays out the reasoning. So I'll read a little bit about now what did the Buddha Palita says In the Buddha Palita, so not from itself, not from another, not from both, not without a cause, never in any do anything arises. That's the Nagarjuna. And the Buddha Palita says that in this regard, if something were to arises, that thing would be arises from itself. So if something were to arises, that thing would be arises from itself, or from another, or from both itself and another, or without a cause. But if we examine these alternatives, none are tenables. So the four chronology, the possibility of things has been produced or born. So how things being produced? Do things arises by themselves, or do things arises from others, or do things arises from no cause, or the both? So I think this is really kind of big argument, because everybody, all kind of religion and philosophical, they try to understand how things arises. So many religion believes things arises from the God or the Bhagavan. Bhagavan has, and then if things arises from the Bhagavan, and then there's four conditions. Is Bhagavan is a causal condition of this plants and human being, or if Bhagavan is objective condition of the plants and the being sentient beings, or the Bhagavan is in the immediately preceding condition of the sentient beings and the plants, like that, or things happen to exist without any cause. So, and the Buddha Palita says, so the four possibilities, things arises from themselves, in and of themselves, or born from others, or from both and without a cause, are untenable. Why? The term from itself, ultimately, right? Ultimately means from its own self. The sprout has to born from itself. Sprout has to kind of manifest, exist by itself. The first, a thing do not arise from its own self, because such arising would be pointless. So if things arises by themselves, and then to call being produced is pointless, because things, they exist by themselves. And how can you call it being produced, right? So the being produced, being arises, is become pointless. Moreover, such arising would be endless. If things produced by themselves, things arises by themselves, and things should be arises and remain forever. Because anytime things happen to exist, they themselves has to decide or determine to be exist. So it's a continuously, without relying on any causal conditions. As such, things that exist in and of themselves do not need to arise again. Now, this is the kind of commentaries Buddha Palitas, the way he commented, the way he lays the reasonings. And with that, yeah, Mr. Wind comes. So, if things, they themselves exist, and then it says, things exist in and of themselves, do not need to arise again. So, because who accept these things arises from again? Because it seems when you read this line from the Baba Vivek point of view, when he reads Nagarjuna's commentaries, as such things exist in and of themselves, do not need to arise again. So the consequences would be yours. So Baba Vivek says, because if things arise in and of themselves, and things cannot be arises again, right? So the consequences, it's implying that yes, I do accept things arises, arises again, or things reappear again, things reproduce again. So Baba Vivek's point of view is you are accepting things are arising, re-arising or reproducing. Things arises again. So when you look at the things like the time and the days, the month, none of them never reappears. Anything that appears and arises, once arisen, and then next moment it disintegrates. Once it disintegrates, never reappear again. So Baba Vivek says, is implying that you are accepting the arises again is your position. Then it would be never not need to arise. Never not need to arises, but but this is untenable. Therefore, the first, things do not arises from themselves. Also, they do not arises from other. Why? Because in consequences, everything would arises from everything. So they do not arises from both themselves and others. So this is Buddha Pandita, a very short line. He lays out the reasoning. So if you put this in the consequentialist, the reasoning, then says, like, for example, sprout. So it's not produced by itself. If the sprout is being produced by itself, it has to be reappears. And then arising would be pointless. So things reappear and arising would be pointless is the reasoning, right? So by negating that, and you are negating things arising by themselves. So what the stanzas, the reasoning, you cannot directly use to constitute any kind of any establishment, but you have to reverse the reasoning. So things are arises again, and things arising of the things as not pointless. That's the reason to say now things do not produce by itself, because things arises again, and their arising is not pointless. So now the Prasangika schools they're named by this consequentialist school. So Prasangika schools, when I try to negate or refute others' standpoint, others' belief, so I use the reasoning they accepted, not because I accept, right? So Prasangika school saying, because the Samkhya school and non-Buddhist school, the Samkhya school, they believe for example, sprout, arising of the sprout. The sprout is already exists within its seed. Sprout must exist within the seed. And then when it comes to, manifest, before the eye, and people call it arises.
So which means then like pregnant woman, the baby is in her womb, and then when she give birth, and people say, oh, baby has born. So something already there, and then once is manifest before the eye, so then people call it arising. So re-arising is already arisen, but once again it arises in front of the eye. So re-arising is accepted in the Sankhya school. So this is what the other school of thought they accept by using their reasoning, and to say if things reappears, things has a limit to arises, or not pointless, it's limit to arises. So then, which means clearly indicating the arising of the sprout is relying on, right, their causal condition and corporate conditions. If things are relying on, if the effect are relying on the causal condition and the corporate conditions, then which means things do not have, right, any potential to arise by themselves. So this is Buddha saying, this is my way of establishing the Baba Vivek says, when you say things would in consequences, things would be arising of the things would be pointless, and things arises again, means, so it means that so you are accepting the arising of the sprout has a limited, arising of the sprout is once again it arises. So Buddha says, no, you don't have to accept that, because you're using what they believe. It's not because you believe it, right? So if you directly counter the opponents, you have to use the reasoning they accepted, right? So this is really after Nagarjuna's Buddha Paliti's first commentaries, and then after the Baba Vivek, and he criticized on the Buddha Paliti's commentary, and after the Baba Vivek and Chandrakirti came, Chandrakirti defends the Buddha Paliti's standpoint. So this is really it's very complicated and a very interesting argument. So many followers after that, many masters, so they think now they see, the middle ways, it seems there's intersect in the two schools. So one is the consequential schools, one is middle way autonomous school. So anyway, because sometimes when we say in non-Buddhist school, it says there's one thing that is never being born, but it exists. What is that thing? So it's Om. It's the Om. But still, we are not sure, because what is that Om? How that thing happened arises? Is it letter? Are you talking about the letter Om, or are you referring to something else? That letter is trying to express it. So similarly, in the Buddhist particularly Manjushri root text, as I mentioned last time, and there's a ani dukuncho koniju developments. The letter R is the supreme, or is the root or principle of all letters, because A has R, B has R, everything is the soul of all letters. ah. So it's a kind of, it's the principle or essence of all letters, but the ah is means is born from the hollow of your body, but is not being produced. So this, if you so when you think of that very closely, and that sentence itself has the contradictions. So it born from the hollow of the body means it being produced. And then at the same time you say it's not produced. So you have to make it very clear that the sound of is born from hollow, but not produced by lips and the tongue. So that's what you mean, right? Like B is lips, right? K, so P, all this lips and the tongue has to move. Is not, produced by the kind of, lips and the throat. So in this way, the letter Om or the Om sound is something that is, and it is the sound. Non-Buddhist school thinks that this is the sound, and it is the thing. By actualizing, experiencing it, it will kind of, brings you closer to the Bhagavan. Om sound. So Dharmakirti says, so Om, right? Om should not be produced, right? Om, sound of Om, and it's not being produced because it has to be permanent. Om has to be permanent because not being produced. So this is the consequentialist kind of reasoning. Consequentialist reasoning. So letter sound, from the Buddhist point of view, letter sound is the sound, is a conditioned phenomena. It has to produce. It's being produced by the cosmic condition. So when you kind of, when you present, when you're trying to refute others the belief, you have to say that the sound Om is has to be permanent, must be permanent because it's not being produced. Right? So if you use this kind of consequentialist reasoning to the follower of the Tantrayana and Buddhists, right? He says, so that particular Buddhist, the Tantrayana. So, are you definitely mean that the the letter R is not produced by anything? And then probably they say no, it's born from your hollow of the body. So it is produced, right? It is not produced by lips and throat, by it being produced. Without the hollow in the body, you cannot make that sound of Right? So similarly, in non-Buddhist school, so when they meditate on the Om, first they have to make the sound of Om by their mouth, and then gradually, once your mind is more familiarized with this Om, and then Om opens the idea of the space, and then you are kind of gradually being inseparable from the space. From that space, that really, once the mind is totally tuned into the space, that space, and seeking the Bhagavan, and you may have a vision of the Bhagavan. That says, right? So, but the Om, letter Om, clearly it has to be produced. Without producing the sound of Om, you are not going to meditate on this. So, Dharmakirti says, a sound Om must be permanent right, must be permanent because it's not being produced. Anything that is not produced has to be permanent. Anything that being produced and must be impermanent. So then this kind of, when you lay out the kind of reasoning, and then to the Samkhya school, and then they would say, the sound on is being produced, and it is not permanent. But this kind of the kind of reasoning is called consequentialist, because the reason is you are not accepting reasoning, you are using that reasoning because others they believe in this.
Does it mean that Baba Vivek didn't really understood how the Buddha makes this point?
Chandrakirti says that Baba Vivek did not really understand the consequentialist real kind of reasonings. And then, with this argument, we, in the Prasanga school, we accept nothing arises again. Nothing arises again. Everything's once arisen, next moment disintegrates. Once it's disintegrated, never arises again. But in the language, we say, reincarnations. There is reincarnations. So reborn. So what do you mean by reborn, reincarnate? If anything, if things do not born again, why would say reborn, right? So sometimes in Tibetan, yangsi, it's reincarnations. There's a re-start, right? So there is kind of, so I think that kind of, reincarnations, reborn is based on the continuity. The continuity of that is continuously arising again and again. Like, for example, once as a human being, yourself as a human being, once is born until death, he's just keep, right? Day by day, month by month, year by year, he keep reappearing. So he keep reappearing, and sometimes good person, sometimes bad person, sometimes neutral, sometimes so great person, and then again go back to bad person, right? So it's kind of continuously as reappears, right? Reappears, changing. So reincarnation is referring to the continuity. It's not because the one single entity is constantly being produced or remaining existence. So I think when we try to understand the reality as it is, many times we have to go beyond our language and concept. So if you just remain stuck in language and concept, language will, what do you call, create you. So your emotions has become part of the language. So the language is clearly we see is distinctions, because each concept designed different languages. So we always remain in separate and very kind of distinctions. So we have to go beyond the language and concept, and then come back to the language, and then we see, this is just the creations, just every day, just creating. There's no solidity, anything. So Baba Vivek, so consequentialist way of laying the reasoning is things do not arise by themselves, because if things produce by themselves and their arising would be pointless, and there's no possible reappearing, reborn again. So I think this is talking about, when we talk about the three conditions and how things has four conditions and how things has born.
Also, back on the question of like disintegration and the wording and language, even disintegration is conceptual too, right? Because you said at one point that nothing can be produced from no cause. So if something ceases and it's gone, that means nothing can come from nothing. Right?
Yeah, things cannot be born from nothing. So things are always follow its own causal conditions. So without causal conditions, there is no such thing can manifest or can be produced. So I think this is very, I think, very crucial for understanding the basic, the idea of the, liberations and, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So without understanding this, there is no clear understanding of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So disintegrations is the kind of sound of disintegrations, or the word that disintegration is trying to expresses what has passed. What has passed. If there's something past, something happened, something typical happened right after that thing. Something that born followed the previous caused conditions. Like rice sprout never follows the barley seed. Barley sprout not following the tomato seed. Right? So by disintegrating the barley seed, and happen the barley sprout. So the barley sprout has happened due to the disintegration of the barley seed. And rice sprout happened because of the disintegration of the rice seed. So the immediately, immediately disintegrated rice seed is the immediate cause, immediate preceding condition for the, rice sprout. Immediately disintegrated barley seed is immediately preceding condition for the barley sprout. So the previous barley seed become the causal conditions, right? So in this way, if the Bhagavan is a response for that, so Bhagavan should be, Bhagavan should be causal condition for the rice seed and the barley seed. So then barley seed, barley sprout and rice sprout follows one causal condition, which is the Bhagavan. The barley sprout, rice sprout, human being, plants, the rocks, water, all born from one single causal conditions is impossible, right? Because otherwise, and why not barley sprout not born from rice seed? Why not tomatoes born from the barley seed? Because the barley seed, by disintegrating itself and allowing the barley sprout to manifest. So the causal conditions, the function, the responsibility of the causal condition is, to be allowed their effect to manifest. It has to cease to exist. So the Bhagavan is not that cannot be take the place of the causal condition. So, many times people who believes in the Bhagavan is the the causal condition for everything. And they also believe that, the suffering that today I receive is caused by the Bhagavan. And sometimes you can complain to the Bhagavan, so why you give me this suffering, right? Why make me poor? Why make me so rude? So almost like you are always innocent all the time. How many times you commit a crime, you say, but you make me cry, criminal. So I think that's not really good gestures to, show respect to the Bhagavan. So Bhagavan says, please don't tell me that. So I'm the responsible for that. So clearly the Bhagavan is not the causal condition, not the immediate preceding condition. And also not the objective conditions. So objective conditions and the consciousness, which consciousness, which born from the objective conditions means. So objective conditions, objects, like they use like all men standing up by relying on a can. The consciousness that manifest by relying on the object, like an eye consciousness that manifests being active by relying on the color that it sees, shape that it sees, the air consciousness that manifests or being active by relying on the sound, right? So the old man standing up by relying on the can. So in this way, by looking at the Bhagavans, do we generate anger, attachment, faith, compassion, all of them? And then Bhagavan is the objective condition for your anger. Bhagavan is objective condition for the, your faith and compassion, everything. So he has, Bhagavan is not really standard condition. So see, he can change everything. He can make you suffering. He can make you happy. So he's just playing on you. So how can you accept his infallible protector? So in this way, the Bhagavan is not the objective condition, not the causal condition, not the preceding conditions. So by saying it, and also, and then objective condition, immediate preceding condition, causal conditions, and then dominant conditions like eye sense power, eye sense power by relying eye sense powers having reflections of the color in eye sense powers that produces the eye consciousness. So Bhagavan also not function like eye sense power. Right. And then the last only possible left to continuously thinking the Bhagavan is the cause where everything is, you can say, because of his will, things happen. No. So that is out of whim, at someone's will, things are happening. So that's called fifth conditions. Like, in a farm, at will of the farmers, if harvest happen, right? Then farmer, they don't really need to put a lot of effort in working in the field. So, and if the Bhagavan is at his will and everything happening here, means now there is nothing we can do. So now we just go and knock his door, say, stop doing these things, right? You do good things, you don't do bad things. So instead of saying, I do not commit a negative action, performing perfect virtuous actions. So we have to say to Bhagavan, you do not commit any negative actions, perform perfect virtuous action. You subdue yourself. so, so if the Bhagavan is no need to subdue it, and he should stop, performing negative actions. So things are not happening at his will, right? So therefore, there is no fifth conditions. Things do not happen at will of someone else. So if you pray to the Buddhas, Buddha, do not commit any non-virtuous actions. Please perform perfect virtuous action. Buddha, subdue yourself. This is your teachings. so that's kind of very, so you always innocent. You have no power. You have no will to change, right? And every effort is waste. So only because of him. So that's why, Buddha Palitas, as such things exist in and of themselves. They do not need to arise again, and but something that already exists need to arise again. So, barley sprout pre-exist within the barley seed is untenable, right? If the barley sprout is pre-exist within the barley seed, and there is no longer need for the corporate condition, because the sprout is already exists. So if the barley sprout is not already exists in the barley seed, if the question, like for example, if Sanjay school raised questions, if the barley sprout is not already pre-exist in the barley seed, so how can the arising of the sprout can be time? Because it's the future. If something is future, that is the time. If something is the time, that should be exist. If something exists, and where the arising of the sprout can exist. So only place that you can find the arising of the sprout is body seed. So if this kind of questions, so Buddha says arising of the sprout is exist, not in seed, not with sprout. It exists conceptually. It's a kind of mental construct. So, the arising of the sprout as a future exists in the face of thought, and it is just constructed by the thought, is a mental construct, and to be exist of the futures, it has basis. So basis, in what base that the arising of the sprout exists as a future, the potential of the seed. Potential of the seed is the relying on them with base of that and something conceptually constructed as the future. So the future is not in their cause. Future is not really being produced yet. So, and also once the arising of the sprout is the futures, and when that futures comes to the physical, right, like the arisen sprout is already physically manifest, then still you can understand the path of the seed exist. Without path of the seed, the arisen sprout is impossible. So the past exists, but depending upon the present, the past is, not necessarily exists within the present because it is depending on the present. So the three times are kind of constructed by the thought, by relying on, by depending upon the disintegration and the arising. So the Prasanga school, every object that is engaged by the consciousness or apprehended by the consciousness or perceived by the consciousness merely exists in the face of thought, merely constructed. So this is why I say nominally exist. So yeah, and then so the clear word states, we accept the establishment of conventional truth in terms of mere conditions, mere conditionedness. We accept the establishment of conventional truth. So what are the conventional truth? The relation of the barley seed and sprout, and conventional truth like consist of color, smell, taste, tactilities, the four substance as a part, or braid, or sound, or smell, or taste, or tactilities. These all conventional truth. So in terms of mere conditionedness, the mere conditionedness is not on the basis of adhering to any of the four positions. So mere condition means mere is negations. What is negating is, yes, things do exist, but not from itself, not from both others, not from both, not without cause. Therefore, mere conditions. If arising from others, from both, and from no cause, otherwise there is consequences that things possess intrinsic nature, which is the untenable. If one accept this mere conditionedness, cause and effect, will then be mere mutually, contingent, and thus will not exist by virtue of an essence. As a result, one will not speak of things as being endowed with intrinsic nature. So here, now this is saying now, so as the Rice Seedling Sutra reads, whoever sees the dependent rising sees the Dharma. Whoever sees the Dharma sees the Buddha. So the attainment of enlightenment of the Arhat is, so attainment of Arhat enlightenment is due to, realization of things exist as nominally, things exist as a conceptually, things lacking the intrinsic nature. So if you understand things are dependent arising, things exist from the designations. So that realization has a has a quality of overcoming the afflictive emotions and misconceptions. So here, the pacification of the afflictive emotion, how do afflictive emotion pacifies? How do you really calm those powerful negative emotions? So you can calm those afflictive emotions by, understanding things are lacking intrinsic nature. So that will calm the afflictive emotion. That will kind of, reduce and eliminates the afflictive emotions. So the possibility of the cessation of the afflictive emotions, or the possibility of pacification of the afflictive emotion through pacifying the mental construct. Pacifying the mental construct is not destroying or denying the mental constructs. Rather, mental construct, they exist nominally. So mental construct exists due to the power of the concept. So I think that again goes like saying that, if there is something, if there is anything, the arisen of the sprout, or arising of the sprout, or the relation of the barley seed and the sprout, or anything, the braid, flower, person, male, female, any of those, if they really exist, if they do have any solidity in nature, if there's anything that is essence in them, so then yes, there is, and then there is a kind of solid target to be fixate, solid target to be detached and attached. If there is, by nature, there's solid target for the negative emotions, and then for sure, there is no antidote that can remove the afflictive emotions. So overcoming afflictive emotions is impossible, and Dharma is not true. So Prasangika school, Sotantika school, and kind of Vibhashika school, Mainona school, they criticize the Prasangika school. Says, if there is nothing intrinsically, and you have no Four Noble Truths, you have no Buddha, no Dharma, no Sangha. And the Prasangika school says, if there is a something intrinsic nature, there's no Four Noble Truths, there's no Buddha, no Dharma, no Sangha. Because you have solid target, solid object, and there's a right to be angry, there's a right to be attached, there's a, everything is kind of, all these negative emotions is not a wrong perception. These are, perceiving the reality as it is. So how can there any kind of antidote or knowledge that can remove or kind of, eliminate those negative emotions? So negative emotions cannot be overcome or removed or pacified. Yeah, I think this is really kind of very, very you can say it's very profound, and then it's crucial to have genuine trust in Buddha Dharma Sangha. So, in other words, culturally, it says, because my teacher says there's a Buddha Dharma Sangha, or I like this idea of Buddha Dharma Sangha, right? within the non-Buddhist school, there also always there's, disagreement. So follow kind of Shiva devotees, Shiva devotees says the root of everything that exists is the Shiva. And Vishnu followers says Vishnu is the father of everything. Even the Shiva and Brahma are born from the Vishnu. And Shiva followers says Shiva is the first cause. So from the Shiva, there's the Vishnu, there's the Brahma. So they don't have really common kind of in the ground, but too much expectations because they want to say something. They want to hold on something. I think sometimes the religion is very similar to this government policy. So, they say something, there's some kind of benefit, and they just, this is very good. Just keep saying that. And then once they fail, then go after them, and then just blame on past policies. Yeah, I think this is really kind of very, very exciting and very profound because this understanding of this kind of the kind of several nature of the dependent arising, particularly arising of the sprout, arising of the effect, right? That opens the the actual understanding of Buddha Dharma and Sangha. So, in the dependent arising, the benefit from the realization of dependent arising, this is so dependent arising, the kind of the understanding of dependent arisings is directly negating the independent, because dependent arising is the opposite of independent. So emptying the independent natures helps you kind of keep you from fear. So independent arising gives you the courage or the enthusiasm to continuously follow the path to the liberations. So what kind of fear is the emptiness? Some Indian masters this, So meditating on emptiness is, is very, So meditating on emptiness it shows because when you examine when you examine the self or I, and you could not find the self or I, you end up in just perceiving space, total absence. So that's very much like death, not finding yourself at all, and not finding any illustration of existing of yourself. So it continuously, and you kind of mind that abiding in that space again and again. So this person will never be afraid of death. Right? So I think and then that also, if this realization emptiness can help you keep you from the fear of death, and it also definitely have quality of keep you from the fear of any conditions, any events, right? The fear, aging, dying, sickness, and unsuccessful, insultment. And all these fears can be, this realization can be keep you from all of these fears. And the dependent arising is helps you. Things are not independently if things is not pointable, but relatively exist, constantly existing. Right? You find yourself sometime short, sometime tall, sometime big, sometime not that big, sometime good, sometime not that good, sometime you find a very bad person. So it's kind of relatively, right? Or related, kind of, comparing this person, I'm good. This person, I'm not that good. So just, right? So which means is things are dependent, relatively existing. So which means things do not have any intrinsic natures, nothing really existing by its own nature, like short and tall, this side and that side, good, bad, So relatively existing is the kind of, here, the essence of the realization is relatively existing. I think social problems are also like, so every time they go to India, there's a lot of, arguments. Some Hindus, it says, so Hindu, Hindu government is now it's time. The government has to be Hindu. So kind of the extreme kind of thinking. So this is the best. It's not comparing anything, because this is what we feel comfortable. So this must be the good, right? So sometimes the language thinks this language is best for nation language, or that language is not good for the Asian language. So India is very complicated because there are too many dialects in the different states. Each state, almost like even the small cities, states, villages, they have different dialects. So the parliament, they decide to kind of the Hindi and English, and mostly they speak English in parliament. So relatively, they find this is better. So the relative and relatively relativities. So relativities, not just nation and not the relations. Relativity is also the braid, color, smell, taste, tactilities, and male, female, right? Person is all relatively exist. And the self and I, which says, this is what we see in the conceptually, we view the self or person. I am man, I am monk. So kind of, what? So, but depending on what that makes you, or that kind of, force you to view the solid I as a person, as a Tibetan, as a monk. So it's a robe, physical, all right? And by kind of relying on them, that really kind of, gives to the thought to view there is me as independent. This is exactly like, the kids, they're riding on mounting on the handrail and then seeing their riding horse. So arising of the sprout is not born from itself, because arising of the sprout itself is the future. Future means not yet born, not yet exist. So something not yet exists, not yet born, cannot be produced by itself, right? Because it is the future. And arising of the sprout is the not yet born, therefore it cannot be produced by itself, and it is not being other from their cause. So to be other, or to be different, it has to exist. Once it's not exist yet, how can this be? How can this be remain different from their cause? So if arising of the sprout is no different, not remaining exist as a different from their cause, how can it born from others? So if the arising of the sprout is not produced by itself, not born from others, because they are not different, not remain exist as a different, because not yet born, not yet exist, and how can arising of the sprout born from others, both itself and both? If the arising of the sprout is the futures to be manifest, it relying or depending upon and their causal condition and the corporate conditions. So how can this arising of the sprout is no cause? Right. So the arising of the sprout is the futures, therefore not yet born, not yet exists, not produce itself, not being exists as remain different from their cause, not born from others, they're not born from both, and without causal condition and corporate condition, this arising of the sprout cannot be manifest. So without no cause, it's impossible. So that now, again, going to the arising of the sprout, the very existing of is what makes this is the futures, what makes it existing, what makes it time. So the conceptual is making it existing. Conceptual holding is existing. Conceptual kind of giving the identity. Right? Your thought is giving identity. Because I planned this, this may happen. Right? I am doing this, this will happen. So I planned the barley seed, barley sprout may happen. I planned the barley seed, therefore the rice sprout won't happen. So so it's kind of, in conventional, this very, very, fragile. The very entity of the arising of the sprout is very delicate, because if you say it is time, it is exist. So the question is, it exists yet? Not. It's not exist yet, but it is the time, therefore it exists. It exists, it can manifest. It's not yet exist. So that's called conventional truth. So it's kind of, conventionally, ordinarily the existing. Ordinarily existing means if you analyze, it will disappear. Right? So without analyzing, something can manifest. Yes, I have witnessed this, I planned this, and this has happened. So therefore, the arising of the sprout in the future exists because it can be manifest. It can be appears to the eye sense power. Something can really happen. You should say that it exists. So this is why my refuge object, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, my future Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I have to accept this exists. If you ask, exists yet? Not. Because there is cosmic condition, therefore I accept that is existence. So that's why I can give them their identity to my future Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha as an existence. Yeah, every school-going students, they seize the futures. They seize, when I graduate and I will do this. So I will graduate, I'll join this group and this companies, right? So the arising of their future graduations are existing for them because this existing is depending upon present and the potential that is existing in the present. So, depending of the present does not mean that it exists in the present. So that's the conventional. So nominally exist. Mere condition means that if you try to reach that, right? If you try to go closer to it, this will like water in the mirage. More closer, it will disappear. It's unfound, right? But from distance, yes, this seems to be existing. So Samkhya school, they think this whole futures must exist within their cause. So it means it already exists before it has born. So Nagarjuna Ayadeva says, so if the future is already exists, future sprout is already exists, are you mean within the seed? So if within the seed it already exists, and it has to be a sprout. And so if the sprout is already exists, why seed? Why seed? Relying on corporate condition, water and soil to produce it. A sprout is already exists. So if you think the sprout is not in the seed, but still exists, means now it exists before the seed. So before the seed, there is no basis for the sprout to exist. So any effect cannot be exist before their cause. So if the future sprout exists as a sprout, and it is the sprout, so once it is the sprout, it can be visible to the eye. So if visible to the eye, it has to be present. So it's not a present, not in the cause, not before the cause, right? So if you try to locate that futures, it's unlocatable. but still undeniably it exists. So two reasons, because it can manifest, it has manifested many times, right? And it has the cause. It has a cause means, to be future there is a cause. We're not saying that. So it can manifest. There is a cause to be manifest, that future to the physical. It can materialize, right? So like this future sprout, the way it exists, and color, smell, taste, tactility is also exactly existing like the future sprout. So if you try to pinpoint and examine, try to find, and you cannot find even the colors. So color is, kind of the manifest, by depending on the many factors together, the light, space, form, and sense powers. So the color is not belongs to one individual thing, not belongs to the light, not belongs to the form, not belongs to the eye sense power. And without one of them, color cannot exist. So like a sound, smell, taste, tactilities like that. So it's not intrinsic, means it's not in here. Color does not in here with space, light, form, sense power. So I think that's the main main knowledge, or main it's a foundation of what makes you believe, what makes you see Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So without this realization, emptiness or the dependent arising, so it's like Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha is like to your mind is very much based with stories. So it's culturally it exists. In non-Buddhist schools, they're very much like comic stories. So there's the Krishna, the story of Vishnu. So there's a very evil person, king, powerful, and he was really causing a lot of harmful to the people. And king of the god, and many of those god and goddess went to Vishnu, says, now you have to do something. This person is causing a lot of problems. It is destroying everything. And Vishnu was just sleeping. And then Brahma and many of the god and goddess there, please open your eyes. Please open your eyes. Just do something. And then he kind of opened the eyes, and he just, says that, yes, I have already planned. I'm going to reborn as a human being, and I will kind of assassinate the person. The first important thing is my role is in the earth is create the kind of beautiful story of mother and son relations. That's the Krishna is mother, Yashodhara, mother Yashodhara, Krishna's. So mother and son relations. So then he grew up and he got older, and then he went to the the kingdom, and so that bad person, his uncle, so he he killed that uncle. so that kind of story. And why the Vishnu says why I'm going to play that role is because I have keen desire to have mother's love, because he has never born. So, yeah, and then the king of the gods said, what makes you really what triggers you to have this kind of desire to have a mother's love? And then Vishnu says, I have heard, I have seen this. One of there's two of the previously Vishnu killed. There's two kind of evil men. Now they turn into very practitioner, and these two are meditating somewhere in the mountains, the snow mountains, and these two witnessed the one boy. So, and he has so attracted, so fixated, attached to the woman, the girl. And the girl says, if you really like me, if you really love me, so you have to prove, you have to bring your mother's heart. What we call heart, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your cake, rather. And he went to the mother and says, this is the girl that I love, and she asked me to prove. And mother said, is that all? And and mother killed herself and take my heart. So he took the heart in this small container, and he bring that. He stumbled, and mother says, oh son, take care. Take care of yourself. And he heard the sound. He cried a lot. And then this kind of story is witnessed by these two saint who is meditating. And Vishnu noticed this. Vishnu says, this is the power of the mother's love. So I want to have a mother's love. So he wants to born. So he has so much attachment. So he's still not happy. So he wants to have him more. So Vishnu played this Krishna's role, Mother Yashoda's son. So that's how story is. This is like it can help people to create some kind of culture, the positivities, to have a close relation to the Bhagavan. So this is how Bhagavan loves us. This is how Bhagavan comes when it's needed. So there's many comic things, like, for example, I think maybe sometimes it's very, very useful and very beneficial to the ordinary people who have no access to education. Just simply, wanting to closer to the Bhagavan, and they need to tell the kind of stories to create some kind of cultures to to involve in this activity of and faith in Buddha, faith in Bhagavan. And also this, in Krishna stories, often they mention that, so the human beings, the stupidities is caused by the Bhagavan himself. The ignorance is, deceptions, and imposed to the sentient beings by the Maya Devi. So Maya Devi is the Bhagavan. So she wants you to be a little bit stupid. So, so the reason is if you kind of make you stupid, you try to get out from that stupidity. So maybe out of millions, maybe 2, 3 want to get out from it. So yeah, so the suffering is kind of automatically kind of that implies suffering is caused by, or ignorance is caused by the Bhagavan. So this was kind of many times follow the Buddhas proven to be mistaken. It's not true as it told. And after that, Vedantakas, Swami Vivekanandas, Ramakrishnas, and they try to come up with new defense, saying that, yes, the whole story is just a fiction story, and not literally it's true, but the essence. So then go back closer to the more like mind-only school, at the consciousness. So the essence, this is all pointing to the one essence. So the ultimate truth. So it's really, really good, yeah, but so these are, the cultures like stairs to climb up and to find more. So more you dig in, more you find. Yeah, any questions? So here, this whole not born from itself, not from itself, not from another, not from both, not without cause. Never in any way do anything arises. So nothing arises from itself, other, both without cause. So that is, in the 3 times, any places. So with that, it also kind of, refuting, so things kind of, sentient beings, their happiness, their suffering caused by the Bhagavan is not true. So I think some people, many of the non-Buddhist things, they count Gnostic, the, what do you call it? In English was atheist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they count as one of the Buddha. So Gnostic. So who refute the Bhagavan. So here the Nagarjunas, when you read, really kind of, if you try to understand Nagarjuna's the logic, it's not refuting the existence of the Bhagavan. So it's not destroying the concept of the Bhagavan. It's kind of, filtering this, saying, no, the Bhagavan is not in this way is causing it. Right? Bhagavan is not a causal condition. Bhagavan is not a immediate preceding condition. Bhagavan is not objective condition. Bhagavan is not, dominant conditions, and nothing really happening to you in your life at will of him. Everything happening with you is not happening at will of the Bhagavan. He has no kind of, he has no kind of, I would say, desire to punish you. He has no desire to make you stupid. He has no desire to make you unsuccessful. He has no desire to make you poor. So again, because at will, things happening, which means without depending on causal conditions and the corporate conditions, simply because someone wants if things happen, right? So like, for example, the farmers, so good harvest without depending on seed and then all this fertilize and those corporate conditions, simply because the farmers want it. If things happen, if good harvest is happening, so then that is things happening at will. That is the fifth condition. The fifth condition is impossible. So, yeah, if you say, I want barley sprout, but I'm going to plant this rice, my desire to have a barley sprout. So instead of barley seed, I will plant the rice. So that is not possible. So in also the Krishna story, they also told that everything happening at will of the Bhagavan. So there is the Krishna. One time when he was like maybe 10, 7, 8, 10. So he steals the butter from the families, the villages. So one time he was caught by the lady, and she was wearing a garland, or the garland of the pearl, right? And Krishna just kind of snatch it, and it breaks. And this lady went to the Krishna's mothers and complained. And Krishna said, so next time I will kind of repay you. So Krishna used the one pearl and plant in this soil. And tomorrow morning, there's a tree and it grows the pearl, right? So he kind of shares this all the ladies in this village. So what is kind of is signifying that anything is possible if the Bhagavan wants, right? The pearl is not necessarily born from the ocean; it can grow in the tree. So in that way, you are kind of you love Bhagavan. You're also afraid of Bhagavan. So when you so all these things, the bad things happening to you is because the Bhagavan wants you to be suffering. So right, because he loves you. So that's kind of very strange love, unusual love. But when you listen to the stories, some are very, very touching stories. It's really kind of, it has some kind of what you call mechanism, right? Some kind of, it touched your heart. Yeah. If your neighbor cry out, it also touched your heart. So touching heart is not necessarily some kind of reasonable or rational. So any questions? My my teaching is more like Indian. So born in India, so more like Indian. Not much Tibetan stories. So no questions? So I think, yeah. I'll stop here. Sanju Semja Rinpoche, Maje Bama Jeji, Jeba Nyamba, Mewanyo, Kone Kondo Pewash, Tonya Dawa Rinpoche, Maje Bama Jeji, Jeba Nyamba, Mewanyo, Kone Kondo Pewash, Poma Simjen Tamje, Dedan Deji, Nyenro Tamje Dado Tonga, Sanju Semba Kanda Sushi, Tada Kunji, Mamam Drubji Ruji, Karera Weko Veshima, Penda Dewa Malu Jungan, Jereza, Tenzin Shabe Sete Badu Dengi Ruji.
May the precious body mind not yet born arise and grow. May the born have no decline but increase forevermore. May the precious mind realizing emptiness not yet born arise and grow. May the born have no decline but increase forevermore. Due to all these merits, may all Father and Mother sentient beings have all happiness. And may all lower realms be empty forever. Wherever there are Bodhisattvas, may all their prayers be accomplished immediately. In the sacred land surrounded by snow mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. More powerful Chandrakirti and Gyatso, remain in this world until samsara ends.
Thank you very much.